Hey, Ben. Oh, wait, no, 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 hold up. Hi, Ben.
Hi, Carl.
I can't say hey. That's blasphemy.
It just gets funnier and funnier every time.
Does it, though? I don't know if it gets funnier, if it just gets stupider.
It gets stupider, but it doesn't get old, you know?
Just will apologize to the listeners. So we talked a little bit before hitting record about what to talk about today. So a couple episodes ago, we talked about how we needed to do an episode about outreach because I am a dork for it, and I do it all the time, and I teach it, and I have a weird obsession with figuring out how to do it in an effective way. And
isn't it one of the goals also for 2024 for you?
Yeah, it's my big goal of starting 1,000 conversations in 2024. Yep. I'm a little behind, not too far. I'm like 4 days behind schedule. I think I'm technically on schedule for the year, but I'm a little behind on my 3 a day because I was sick for the past week and just feeling absolutely miserable. Glad
you're starting to feel better, though.
I'm starting to feel better. I'm definitely not 100% yet, so we'll probably keep this episode on the shorter side. But the thing I wanted to say, or the reason that I wanted to talk about that today, is because I feel like crap. And that might seem kind of weird, but doing cold outreach is something that a lot of producers and engineers have hang-ups about, right? It's something that's either uncomfortable or intimidating or stressful. And for a lot of them, if they do it at all, they only do it when they're really in the zone for it and really in the mood for it. But to really actually make it effective and useful, you have to build a habit and just get into that habit and do it regularly and consistently, not just when you're feeling good and not just when you're feeling up to it. So that's why I think talking about it while I feel like crap, I think hopefully will inspire people to know that, no, this is something that you can do every day, any day. It doesn't have to be just the few days when you're feeling up for it.
Yeah. So I wanted to just say that this episode is going to be a bit of a Carl is the professor today kind of an episode, because it's definitely Carl's wheelhouse. And it's something that I've learned a lot from him about, and I've thought about a lot and talked with him about a lot. Maybe I just repeated myself, but not something that I've actually done a lot because I haven't been, as you said, inspired to do it. And I'm right now in one of the least inspired times of my life, being, in Israel in 2024. It's just been extremely difficult to be inspired to do pretty much anything. So I'm at this stage of my life where I know what I need to be doing in order to get more, mixing work through the door. But at the same time, I've never been less inspired to hop on Instagram and start messaging people out of nowhere, so to speak. So, or actually, so yeah, that's a little bit of a, framing for this conversation for the audience.
So the first thing I'm going to point out that you said is that you don't want to send messages to people out of nowhere, right? And I think that's the big shift in your approach that I want to make you have. And that I hope people that are listening to this or watching this get out of it, is that it's not out of nowhere. It's coming from a place of genuine creative interest, right? So, I mean, from them or to the person you're sending it to, if they feel like there's no connection to you, then you're doing it wrong, right? If you're able to find and that connection that you can have with them could be musical, mutual musical influences. It could be sometimes actual just mutual friends. It could be other maybe certain stylistic things that you're just really drawn to that they're also really drawn to. You'd be surprised how many things you can find in common with the artists that you want to reach out to. And I think a lot of people, when they are hesitant or intimidated by doing cold outreach, it's because they feel like they don't have a friendship connection yet.
Common ground.
Right. Yeah, they don't have common grounds in in the same sense that they might have common ground with somebody that they physically met in person at a show, right? But there are so many more other ways that you can find common ground with somebody. And I think if you are able to take a step back and look for common ground outside of just physical proximity,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised how easy you can make it to actually feel not just confident when starting a conversation with someone that doesn't know you, but also making them feel confident and empowered and compelled to want to engage with you and have that conversation.
Yeah. So maybe we can get to the very beginning of like your sort of outreach methodology. I know you usually start with Spotify playlists and finding music that, not usually, was that
Sometimes.
I know that's one way that you do it, at least.
That's one way, yeah. So, so there's a couple ways. I mean, I'll without getting too specific yet about how I find artists, but just generally what I'm doing, no matter who I'm trying to reach out to, whether it's somebody that I find through a Spotify recommendation, or it's somebody that followed me on Instagram, or somebody that commented on a post by a band or artist that I've worked with. You know, it's somebody that is like they're friends with or fans of an artist that I worked with. Regardless of who it is, my goal is to try to find out what do I have in common with them. You know, and not just stupid, obvious stuff like, oh, they're also in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which would be weird, actually, now that because most of my clients all of my clients are remote. So it would be kind of weird if I found somebody.
There's not that many people in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, as far as I understand.
There's really not. Yeah, you know, it's when we think about the music that we listen to and the music that we create and the music that we want to create, looking there first as the commonality, that is what I do, right? That's the first place that I look. You know, if there happens to be a mutual friend, if there happens to be a geographical connection, if there happens to be some sort of other thing like, oh, they're also really into obscure mid-century modern furniture. You know, if those things happen to come up, cool, go with that. But even then, I'm also finding really great musical common ground, because if I can't, I shouldn't be reaching out in the first place. You know, if I can't tell who their influences are, if I'm not inspired by their music and find something to genuinely want to compliment them on, or something that I want to ask them about or talk to them about,
they probably won't like your mixes,
reaching out in the first place. Yeah, well, not even that. Like, I'm not going to like their music.
Right.
That's the thing is always trying to find common ground, not necessarily for the purpose of using that as the icebreaker to talk to them, but using that as something to confirm whether or not I feel like I should reach out to them in the first place. You know, like there are a lot of people that will follow me on Instagram. Not a lot. Like, I don't have a ton of followers, but like, I'll have people that follow me on Instagram, and every single person that follows me, I'll go to their profile and I'll try to figure out, do we have something in common? Or is this just like a random person? Is this just like a jewelry store bot, you know, like whatever it is. And the people that I think, oh, we probably have something interesting that we could talk about, those are the people that I reach out to. So when it's music that I find through Spotify, through the recommendation algorithms, it's the same thing. Like, I'll listen to it, and if it doesn't jump out at me, if there's something that I really genuinely feel inspired by in the moment, I just won't reach out to them. You know, it's not the I keep on going back to the hesitations and the nervousness that people have, and like the icky feelings that people have about doing outreach. And it's because that happens when you're reaching out to people that you probably shouldn't be reaching out to. And when you're able to come to a deeper understanding of not just really what you want out of your career, but also who are the people that you want to help, who are the people that are going to find the most value in what it is that you bring to the table, all of a sudden, it makes you excited about doing outreach, because you're only reaching out to people that you see that connection, you find that connection. Yeah. And if you don't see that connection, you're not going to force it, because those icky feelings that used car salesman kind of feeling that a lot of people associate with doing cold outreach, that's due to not having common ground and reaching out anyway, not having a genuine passion for the music and reaching out anyway, not having a sense of, that sense of these people. I think I could be on a good, like, they seem like my kind of people, like that's, I dig their vibe. I think we could really get along. I think we could make some magic together. If not seeing that and reaching out anyway, that's the problem. And I think that's what most people associate cold outreach with, because so many people in other industries, that's how they do cold outreach.
Right. I still think there's a difficulty, or like, some friction for people that are just not used to reaching out to people that they've never met before on the internet, even if they vibe with their style. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there is, not everyone is comfortable with just like reaching out to somebody they don't know, or even coming up to somebody in real life and saying, hey, like, I love this thing you do. Like, unfortunately, that's like, for introverts, that's like something that you kind of have to do if you're in the music business. But like, I don't know, do you have any like hacks to just kind of like get past that initial friction of just like, I don't know this person, even if they're cool?
Well, here, the question that I do, like the hack, is just to ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario if I send them this message? What's the worst thing that could happen if I send this message?
They don't reply.
Right? They don't reply, right?
Yeah.
Or they reply and say, nah, I'm good. Like, you're never going to have a situation where, well, no, you'd have to try really, really intentionally hard to write a cold DM that makes somebody actually have a negative response to you. Like, people, a lot of the students that I've helped with this, when they first started talking to me about it, they had these hang-ups about like not wanting to annoy people or not wanting to come across as sleazy and whatever. And like, yeah, like those are genuine concerns, and I understand that. But the worst thing that could happen is they don't even read the message. The worst thing that could happen is they read the message and they just decide not to respond, or they respond and they say, no thanks. I've got my team. No one's going to hold a grudge against you. And I always try to tell my students that I tell my students that as soon as you can find comfort in being forgotten, that's when you're going to be able to succeed. Because I look at that as a positive thing. An example that I use is when you go to the grocery store, you probably can't remember the face, let alone the name of the person that was at the checkout counter, right? Does that mean that you hate them? Does that mean that you're going to hold a grudge against them and think that they're a terrible person? No, like not at all. Like it's just not
I think people are just like too in their own heads that like because all you experience in this life is your own personal experience, right? Your own consciousness is the only consciousness that you know about, actually, right? So you just assume that everybody else is focused on you, but that's like can be further from the truth. Like everybody's in their own worlds, focused on their day and their shit, and like the worst case scenario, like you're just like a tiny little speck that's just like, okay, like I don't need this right now, bye bye. Like that's like literally the worst case it could be.
Yeah. So I think once you really come to terms with that and you realize, okay, the worst thing that could happen is nothing. And the best thing that could happen is meeting somebody that could turn into not just a collaborator or a friend or a client or a repeat client, but somebody that could really actually, influence you musically and, change the trajectory of your career.
Yeah.
Or you could do the same thing for them. Right. So there's so many positives to it and not really many negatives. The only negatives would be if you have a fear of getting rejected, if you are uncomfortable with being told no, right? But if you have that fear, if you're uncomfortable with that, like you're not going to make it very far in this industry anyway, realistically.
You need to lean into that. You need to lean into that. Like everybody, you can't be a freelancer if you're just too uncomfortable with that stuff. Like if you want to find any semblance of success as a freelancer, you're going to have to move past that,
Yeah. You have to collect no's, is how I phrase it.
Yeah,
You gotta, because the
build
more
up
no's you
that
get,
10,000 hours of thick skin.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like you gotta be told no 10,000 times.
Right.
Because if you get told no 10,000 times, think of how many yeses you got along the way.
Yeah, and you don't even need that big of a percentage of yeses, right?
You don't. So from a practical standpoint, how I try to encourage my students to start this and kind of get to develop that thick skin is by starting off the first day that you do outreach, do like 10. So I'm doing 3 a day for this year on average. And when I have somebody starting that out, I tell them to do 10 first time around, on the very first day. And the reason is the first message is going to take you forever to write. Even though it's only going to be 3 or 4 sentences long, you're going to be in your head the entire time, trying to make sure that you're not wording something weird. You want to make sure that you're getting all of your emotions across without being like overly emotional. You're trying to make sure that you're not you're being specific enough but not being creepy. Like there's all these things that are going to be going through your head that you're trying to wade through, and then eventually you'll finally get okay enough to just click, hit send, right? Well, then the second one is probably going to take half that long. Third one's probably going to take half that long, and by the end, once you get through the first handful, especially by the time you get to number like 7 or 8, you've done so many of them that you no longer are putting them on a pedestal. You're not putting every single individual message on a pedestal, waiting around to see if they're going to respond or not.
Yeah.
Because if you reach out to 3 people in a month, you are going to be very acutely aware of whether or not they responded and what they said. If you do 3 a day, by the end of the, halfway through the first week, you're going to forget some of the people that you reached out to.
Yep.
And that's okay too. It doesn't mean you didn't like their music. It doesn't mean that you have to try to remember every single person you reach out to, because if you don't, you're a terrible person. No, like we're humans. That's how our brains work. But you're just trying to see if they would want to have a conversation, see if the common ground that you see is seen by them as well. And by just kind of front loading that outreach, you build that thick skin right away. You get your calluses for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if one person responds, that's probably better than most of your cold outreach has been throughout your whole career, because you've only done it most people have only done it a handful of times, very inconsistently, very sporadically. But if you start to do this, like you do so many of them, that you only think about and remember the people that did respond, the people that you do have conversations with. And you put those on a pedestal, because those are, well, that's not the right way to phrase it, but like you're not putting the unread messages on this like high anxiety, high importance pedestal. You're focusing on the ones that actually did respond, the conversations you are having.
Right.
And it makes you realize, oh, okay, if I have to send 10 messages to get one person to respond, which if you do the outreach in the way that I like to do it, that's a very, very low percentage. Usually I get quite a lot more responses than that. But even if you just get one response, like I said, that could turn into not just a client, but it could be a friend for life.
Yeah.
That otherwise you may not have even met.
Totally. Anybody you're creative with, you go on a creative journey with, becomes a friend if you guys get along. Yeah.
Yeah.
Seriously. There's a couple, there's something else I want to get to in a little bit, but before we talk about the passive word of mouth cycle, I want to talk about maybe making it become a habit so that it's easy to do even when you're not inspired, because you kind of were saying your impetus for doing this today is because you're feeling low, but you're doing it anyways. Let's talk about how to build up. I guess it's just habit, right? Like, I don't know. How would you describe it?
So the passive word of mouth cycle, how I describe it, and this is something that I feel like every part-time or full-time musician or engineer has gone through this at some point, where they're going through a slow period, and because of that, they can't be selective about who they're working with and who they say yes to. And because of that, because they're not being selective, those clients tend to be maybe lower quality clients. or less aligned with your goals, less aligned with your passions, like you're taking the projects for the money, which we've all done that at some point, right? But when you have a slow period and you can't be selective, you're doing more a higher ratio of for the money projects than we would ever want to do. And when you can't be selective and those low quality clients are coming to you, they're also generally probably lower paying clients. So you're also not making as much money. You're definitely not making like your normal rate because you're kind of in a desperate situation. You're just trying to get paid.
Got to get through the month.
So you got to get through the month, right? So you're putting this energy into more projects probably than you want to because they're not paying as well. And also the clients aren't very great, whether I'm not saying that the music isn't good, but sometimes the music is not good or they're just a pain in the ass to work with or both.
Yeah.
Right. So then you find yourself with a really busy, full schedule of projects that you're not happy with doing. And then you end up getting burnt out. And because you're burnt out, you don't have any energy or time to try to find more clients. So when you get through those clients that are on your calendar, you all of a sudden realize, oh crap, I need to find more clients. And you're back at another slow period. Like that like the ebb and flow of like the busy times and the slow times. That's kind of what outreach can do. Or like that.
It's like reactionary. It's like
it's reactionary. Yeah.
It's not, you're not setting up you're not like setting the table for yourself. You're just like responding to whatever is coming at you. And then the best you can do is kind of just grapple with what you're given. And then it tends to become a vicious cycle.
Yeah. And that's why, when
I'm just thinking about Fat Bastard from Austin Powers. I eat because I'm unhappy and I'm unhappy because I eat.
Yeah.
How well do you remember that movie?
No, it's been a long time, but that's exactly it. And I think that's why word of mouth, like passive word of mouth, is so dangerous because I would say an uncomfortably large portion of the people listening to this right now. I'm talking to you directly. If you rely on word of mouth for the majority of your business, you know how scary that is and how frustrating that is because you can't control it. If you're waiting for somebody to bring you up in conversation, right? If you're waiting for a happy client to bring you up and tell their friend that they should hire you, like when it happens, it's great, right? And when it happens, in a big wave, that's awesome. However, it's not any kind of controllable wave. You're just hoping that you come up in conversation. And I think that's where, for me, the combination of outreach and proactive word of mouth, I think that's the big key for me in enabling me to not have those big ebb and flow, crazy busy periods that lead to burnout, and then slow periods, and then crazy busy periods that lead to burnout, and then slow period. Like it's a way to kind of temper the amplitude of those waves.
Yeah. Wait, so you mentioned two things: cold outreach versus what was the second thing you said?
Oh, proactive word of mouth.
Do you want to maybe define the difference between those two things?
Well, so cold outreach is just, like reaching out to people that don't know you yet. Right. So that's kind of like what we've been talking about for most of this podcast. But proactive word of mouth, as opposed to passive word of mouth, is the act of creating content that gives your happy clients reasons to shout your name from the rooftops. So an easy example would be when I make my New Music Friday videos and I'm tagging all the artists that I've worked with in that video. I am not only, showing their artwork. There's some like interesting visuals in the background. I'm mentioning their name, the song title, what my involvement was, playing a clip of the song itself, making sure that I tag them in the video, tag them in the caption. And then also I'll share each of those individual sections of that video as stories. So when I do that, artists are going to see that. They're going to share it. They're going to share the actual post itself. They'll probably add the story that I tagged them in to their stories as well. So I'm getting like at least 2 shares from them just in that same day. And then all of their friends and fans are going to see that, or at least like, the ones that see their stories, like a good chunk are going to see that, because they're also going to share it. They're going to comment on it. They're going to like it. And it's going to increase the likelihood of their friends and fans to see my name, and to see my name in the positive light of those artists sharing the content that I made about them.
Yeah.
So it could
and
be
ideally a song that they love.
Yeah, exactly. So it could be like a New Music Friday post that I do.
Yeah.
I'll do these videos where I'll just set up a camera in my studio and I'll just play through some of my favorite parts of the song. Like, not even, I'm a mix engineer, and I'll play some of my favorite parts of the production. Like, it's not even parts that not even showcasing what I did to it. It's just me saying, oh, this little thing in the bridge is just really, really cool, and I want you to hear it because I'm excited about it. Making those kind of videos, again, like, it's giving the artists something to share and a reason to share it. Right? Because what artist is going to be mad about you showcasing something that you love about their music, giving them a shout out? Like, it
gives so much social proof for you also,
Yeah. So much social proof, and it's just so easy for them to just like, comment, share, whatever. It's not waiting around hoping that they make a video about you.
Yeah.
It's something that you can do very easily. And most of the content is, generally speaking, already done. Like, the song's already done. So
just grab it.
Just grab it. Like the New Music Friday videos that I make, I'll just either use like a time lapse of me in the studio, or a slow-mo video of my dog running around, or some kind of like visualizer that a buddy of mine made, those old school, like, colored oil, like, real trippy, like, 60s visualizers, something like that. Like, they're fairly low effort videos when it really comes down to it, but they have a big impact, because not only is it giving those clients something to share and to get your face and your name and your music that you worked on in front of more people, but also it just shows your clients that you care. Like, you're going, like, I don't have to do those videos.
Right.
That's not part of my client agreement that I have to promote their stuff. Like, no, I'm doing it because I fucking love the song, and I love those people. And when you can share that excitement and also make them feel appreciated, and also give them something to get in front of their friends and fans who probably like similar music or make similar music, like, why would you not do that? So that's the big difference between the proactive word of mouth and the passive word of mouth. Passive word of mouth is waiting around for your name to come up in conversation, hoping that they recommend you. Proactive word of mouth is giving them reason to talk about you, giving them reason to share it, giving them reason to put your name in front of their friends and fans.
Yeah. And to hire you again, also, honestly, right? Amazing.
Yeah, I got very animated. That was the most animated I got. And like I said, I feel like crap, but like, despite feeling like crap,
this is your passion.
That's how important that is. That is, it's so easy. And when producers or mixers or mastering engineers or whoever, like, when they post just a still image of the artwork and it says, oh, the new song by blah, blah, blah is out now, go check it out. Like, that is the laziest bullshit in the whole world. I'm sorry if anybody listening feels seen right now, but like, it's so lazy and doesn't do any good, right? Like, because you're just making it about you, but not even in any kind of like meaningful way, right? If you can add music to it, talk about them if you want, even in the caption, like, mention what what it was like working on that song, like, what was the emotional intent of it. Like, there's so many things that you can do to make it more impactful and more meaningful. And the more impactful and meaningful you can make it, the more impactful it's going to be on your career in the long run too. Yeah.
All right. Lots to think about for the listeners and the co-podcast hosts.
Yes. End of rant. Sorry.
Okay, amazing. So now that we've defined the passive word of mouth cycle and we've kind of gone through that and why we really need to be proactive, how about we talk about making things a habit and sticking to it and how you're able to do it even when you're not feeling like it. Like again, I'm probably less inspired than I've ever been. Like, how do I get into a habit right now to start doing something like this and just sticking with it through thick and thin, even on your down days? Like, how do you do that?
I mean, honestly, the non-answer answer is going to be the same way that you build any habit, by intentionally doing it every day, right? Like whether it's people that go to the gym and then even if they feel too tired, they still get up and they still go because they know that there is going to be a good feeling, like a benefit to it at the end of that workout. They know that their day is going to be better. They know that not just their overall health is going to be better, but they know that there's going to be that rush and that positive feeling that they're going to have at the end of that workout. So they know how that's going to affect the rest of their day. And that's the same way that I look at outreach. I mean, you could, from a practical standpoint, set aside 30 minutes a day to do 3 messages, and to send 3 messages a day. And I don't take even remotely close to a half hour to do 3 messages, right? I am just telling this to people that want to get started. To do that, set a specific 30 minutes a day or whatever you want to do, but protect that time in the same way that you protect the time that you have for mixing or for producing. You set that time aside, and that is what you are going to do. You're going to do outreach for that half hour.
Right.
And
like
if your goal is
blocking your calendar.
Yeah, blocking your calendar and making it an active, intentional part of your schedule. And once you start doing it, after the first couple of days, it's not going to take you a half hour to do it. I could probably do 3 messages maybe in 10 minutes. Like 3 good, thoughtful, intentional messages, because I do it every day, and it doesn't take that long to get that quick with it. It just takes doing it to get there.
This kind of goes back to our first episode. We're talking about like input habits or input goals, right? Rather than output goals. So
yeah, exactly. And that's why my input goal is to do 1,000 conversations this year, or just to try to start 1,000 conversations with new people this year, because I can do 3 a day. That's totally manageable. And I know that if I start by doing that, I'm going to be able to achieve the goal. If I just look at it as just the goal of doing 1,000, that's terrifying. That sounds like a crazy amount of conversations, but 3 a day, that's a lot more manageable. And even if the first 3 are a little tough for you because it's new and you're in your own head and you're your own biggest critic, getting through the first couple of days, you start to realize, oh, none of this matters. In the existential self-doubt sense. Right. It matters a lot in the sense of you being able to reach new potential collaborators or clients or friends or whoever, or to weed out the people that you realize are not going to be a good fit, which is just as helpful. But you're not going to worry about every single response, because if somebody doesn't respond to you, that's what doesn't matter. Like, who cares? Like, they're not holding a grudge against you. They just didn't respond, or they didn't read it, and whatever, that's fine, because there are 30,000 new songs coming out every day on Spotify. So
wow,
there's always going to be more people to reach out to.
Right. I think you told me this, that there's always there's so much music on the internet right now. There's so much music in the world that it's like you're bound to vibe with somebody's music and they're bound to vibe with you. You just have to find the right people. The numbers are there, for you to find exactly the kind of music you want to work on.
Yeah. And especially knowing that we can very easily just find people that do not necessarily live geographically close to us. If this was 1995 and I was trying to do the same thing, it would not work. Right. I mean, besides the fact that internet was not very good, but just the idea of collaborating remotely just was not a thing. Even honestly, even like 5 years ago, it was doable, but pretty clunky. It definitely
Right.
wasn't as ubiquitous as it is now.
Yeah.
And if I were stuck trying to only find clients that I vibe with that also live within a 25-mile radius, then yeah, I'd be in a very different
You'd have
different position.
you'd have a different career, or you would have moved to like Nashville or something.
Yeah, but you don't have to, because there are so many people that are just as passionate as you are, that want to get better. They want to go farther. And if you put the time into trying to find them, it's the return on your time investment is incalculable.
Right. Wow. Awesome. Well, that's like I think probably a great place to close out this episode. Do you have any other thoughts? Like, I think people should just, I'm sure there's going to be one person here that's like super inspired, is going to change the trajectory of their career by like just changing their approach to how they find clients and artists to work with. I hope. Yeah. Maybe that person will be me or maybe it'll be someone else. Yeah. Anything else you want to say before we wrap this?
Well, I would say, yeah. So this is something that I think about all the time and teach all the time. So if this is something that you feel would be very beneficial to you and your studio business, let me know. Send me a message. I'll put a link in the show notes for some more information about some of the master classes that I teach about this. But this is something that completely transformed my career, and I've seen it transform careers of other engineers and producers that I've helped with it. So I know the value of it, but if you think this is something that could be helpful for you, let's talk. I want to help you out and make more great music, even if it's not me making the music. If I can help other engineers and producers to better connect with the clients that they just really, really love working with and make great music together, like that's the goal. So if I can facilitate that, then hell yeah.
Amazing. I think we're going to have to talk about in a future episode how to prime, the way you come across on social media and your website, so that when people do have these conversations, they'll be like, oh, this definitely seems like somebody I should connect with. I think that may be a future episode. Maybe I'm teeing us up for another kind of sort of marketing sort of episode.
Totally.
Because this doesn't happen in a vacuum, right? Like, this happens in like the context of what you're doing and what you're putting out into the world.
The analogy that I use is that sending these messages, sending the cold DMs, that is planting the seed. But your social media content and your website, that's the fertilizer that's going to nourish their sense of what it is that you do, what makes you click, what is the unique thing that you bring to the table. And then follow-ups are the watering can. So outreach on its own, like, yeah, you can plant seeds everywhere, and some of them might just by chance have been planted in a place with enough fertile soil and enough rain to work. But
right.
it's a piece of a bit of a larger puzzle, but it's all very doable. And that's
like wild shrubbery versus a garden.
yeah. Like we're doing like hydroponic.
Exactly.
Hydroponic gardening. That's the goal.
Yes. Love that. Amazing. This has been great. Thanks so much, Carl. Bye. Bye, Carl.
Of course. Bye, Ben.